Welcome back to the channel, US Rare Coins News, Top 1. Today we are looking at a penny that most people would ignore, but collectors are quietly hunting like treasure. I'm talking about the 2009 D1-cent Lincoln penny. Yes, a single penny. And depending on what you find on it, this tiny copper coin could be worth way more than 1 cent. Stick with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why this coin was special the moment it was released, what makes certain versions rare, the errors that can multiply its value, and the real prices collectors are paying today. Now grab a 2009 penny if you have one nearby. Let's look at it together. First, flip it over in your hand. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. That classic design has been around since 1909. But in 2009, everything changed. Why? Because 2009 marked the 200th birthday of Abraham Lincoln and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent. To celebrate, the US Mint released 4 different reverse designs that year. And our focus today is the 2009 D version, struck at the Denver Mint. Take a close look at the reverse. Instead of the Lincoln Memorial, you'll see one of 4 special designs representing different stages of Lincoln's life. If you zoom in with a camera or show a close-up shot here, you'll notice one of these scenes: a log cabin for his birth and early childhood, Lincoln reading while taking a break from rail splitting, the Illinois state capitol representing his professional life, or the U.S. Capitol under construction symbolizing his presidency. Each design tells a story. Each one feels different. And that alone makes 2009 pennies collectible. Now here's something most people don't realize. The 2009 pennies were made in much lower numbers compared to surrounding years. During the financial crisis, demand for coins dropped sharply. So the mint produced fewer pennies than usual. That lower mintage is the first clue. The 2009 D Lincoln cents for each design had mintages in the tens of millions, which sounds like a lot. But compared to the billions made in other years, it's significantly lower. That means fewer were saved in high condition, and condition is everything. That if you have a circulated 2009 D penny with scratches and wear, it's usually worth face value. But if you have a bright, uncirculated example with full red luster, that's where things get interesting. Collectors look for coins graded MS65, MS66, MS67 and higher. In those top grades, especially MS67 red, prices can jump fast. A high-grade 2009 D Lincoln cent from one of the commemorative designs can sell for around $20 to $100, depending on condition and demand. Some top population examples in MS68 have reached several $100s at auction. Now let's talk about errors. Because this is where the real excitement starts. Have you ever checked your pennies for doubling? On some 2009 D cents, collectors have reported double die errors. Look closely at the date, the word Liberty, and in God we trust. If you see strong doubling, not just machine doubling but real separation in the letters, you could be looking at something valuable. There are also off-center strikes, die cracks, and clipped planchets reported for 2009 D cents. If you show a close-up shot here of a dramatic off-center example, viewers will immediately understand why error coins attract so much attention. An off-center 2009 D Lincoln cent can sell for $50 to $200 or more, depending on how dramatic the error is. Strong double dies can bring similar or higher amounts, especially if certified. And here's another detail many collectors miss. The 2009 cents were made with a special composition for collector versions. The proof coins struck in San Francisco were made in 95% copper, just like the original 1909 pennies. But our 2009 D coins for circulation are copper-plated zinc. Still, that historical nod makes the entire 2009 series more meaningful and collectible. So let me ask you this. Do you own any 2009 pennies? Have you ever checked which reverse design you have? Most people don't even realize there are 4 different backs from the same year. Imagine going through a jar of spare change and suddenly spotting a bright red 2009 D with almost no marks. Then you notice sharp details, strong luster, maybe even a small error. That's the kind of moment coin collectors live for, and here's the real market reality. A normal circulated 2009 D Lincoln cent is worth 1 cent. A clean uncirculated example might sell for $1 to $5. High-grade certified examples can range from $20 up to a few $100s, depending on grade and rarity. Error coins can sell anywhere from $50 to several $100s based on the type and strength of the error, not millions. Not thousands for every coin. But real, solid collector value for the right piece. That's what makes this coin exciting. It's modern. It's affordable. And it still has hidden potential. So next time you see a 2009 D penny, don't just toss it aside. Flip it over. Check the design. Look for sharp details. Look for errors. That 1-cent coin could be the start of your collecting journey. Do you own this coin? Which of the 4 2009 Lincoln designs is your favorite? Tell me in the comments. I read them all. Top 2. Today we are looking at a tiny copper coin that most people would ignore, but one version of it has sold for thousands of dollars. Yes, I'm talking about the United States of America 1961 D1-cent Lincoln penny. A coin that many people have seen. A coin that might still be sitting in a jar in your kitchen right now. And in the right condition, this little penny can be worth far more than 1 cent. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what this coin looks like, why some collectors hunt for it, the rare errors that can multiply its value, and how much it has actually sold for at auction. If you've ever wondered whether your pocket change could secretly be valuable, stay with me. Let's start with the coin itself. Picture a close-up shot of the front of the coin. You see the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909. The word liberty is on the left. The date 1961 is on the right. And just below the date, you'll see a small D mint mark. That D stands for the Denver Mint, officially known as the United States Mint Facility in Denver. Flip the coin over in a smooth B-roll shot. On the reverse, you'll see the classic wheat design was already gone by 1961. Instead, this penny features the Lincoln Memorial on the back. This design was introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you zoom in close enough, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. That level of detail on such a small coin still surprises people. Now here's where things get interesting. In 1961, the Denver Mint produced over 1 billion of these pennies. That sounds huge. And it is. So you might be thinking, how can a coin with over a billion may be valuable? Condition: most 1961 D pennies were heavily circulated. They went through cash registers, vending machines, pockets, and piggy banks. Over time, they lost their original red shine. They picked up scratches, dings, and dull brown toning, but if you find one in brilliant uncirculated condition, with full red luster and almost no marks, that's a completely different story. Collectors use grading scales from 1 to 70. The higher the number, the better the condition. A 1961 D penny graded mint state 65 red can sell for around $20 to $40. That's already a big jump from 1 cent. But in even higher grades, like mint state 67 red, examples have sold at auction for over $1,000, and that's not hype. That's real auction history. But wait. There's more. Some 1961 D pennies have error varieties that collectors absolutely love. One of the most talked about is the repunched mint mark. Back in the early 1960s, mint marks were punched into the coin dies by hand. Sometimes, the worker would punch the D more than once, slightly misaligned. The result? A shadow or doubled look around the mint mark that if you do a tight macro shot of the D, you might notice extra lines or a slight doubling. That tiny detail can mean the difference between a common coin and a collectible variety worth significantly more. There are also double die varieties to watch for, where parts of the lettering or numbers show noticeable doubling. Look closely at the date and the word Liberty. If the letters appear split or thickened in a distinct way, you could be looking at something special. Now imagine finding that in a roll of pennies from the bank. That's the kind of discovery that keeps collectors searching. Let's talk metal. The 1961 D Lincoln penny is made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams. That heavy copper composition gives it that rich reddish color when preserved properly. Many collectors specifically look for full red examples because the color dramatically affects value. Here's a quick visual idea for your video. Show 3 coins side by side. One dark brown and worn. One mixed red-brown. And one bright, blazing red uncirculated example. The difference is obvious. And so is the price difference. In circulated condition, most 1961 D pennies are worth about 3 to 10 cents. Basically copper value or a small premium. In average uncirculated condition, maybe a few dollars. But in top condition, professionally graded by services like Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company, the value can reach into the high hundreds or even over $1,000 depending on grade and appeal, and that's what makes this coin fascinating, that it's not rare in mintage. It's rare in perfection. That idea alone changes how you look at your spare change. Suddenly, you're not just seeing pennies. You're seeing potential. So now I want to ask you, do you own a 1961 D Lincoln penny? Have you ever checked it closely under a magnifying glass? And which coin would you love to add to your collection next? Before we wrap up, let's recap. The 1961 D 1-cent Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint. It features Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Over 1 billion were made, but only a tiny fraction survive in high-grade red condition. Add in repunched mint marks or double die errors, and the value can rise dramatically. In everyday circulated shape, it's worth just a few cents. In gem uncirculated red condition, it can sell for several $100s. And in top certified grades, auction records show sales exceeding $1,000, all from a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. Top 3, today we are talking about a 1-cent coin that most people have spent without thinking twice, but in the right condition, this 1963 D Lincoln penny has sold for thousands of dollars. It's small. It's copper. It looks ordinary. But collectors know this coin can hide serious value. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly what to look for on the 1963 D penny, the rare details that make certain pieces stand out, and how much the best examples have actually sold for at real auctions. And trust me, one tiny detail on this coin can completely change its price. Let's take a close look. Imagine a tight zoom on the front of the coin. You see President Abraham Lincoln facing right. This portrait has been on the penny since 1909. To the left, the word Liberty. To the right, the date 1963. And just below the date, you'll spot a small D mint mark. That D tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities of the United States Mint. Now flip it over slowly. On the reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial. This design replaced the old wheat ears in 1959. If you zoom in close enough, right inside the memorial, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting in his chair. Most people never notice that. It's one of those hidden details that makes coin collecting fun. Here's where things get interesting. In 1963, the Denver Mint produced more than 1.7 billion of these pennies. That's a massive number. So at first glance, this coin doesn't sound rare at all, but rarity isn't always about how many were made. It's about how many survived in perfect condition. Most 1963 D pennies were heavily used. They passed through hands during a dramatic year in American history. This was the same year President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. The country was going through change. These pennies were part of everyday life during that time. They jingled in pockets, bought newspapers, paid for candy bars, and because they were used so much, most of them are worn today. Now picture 3 coins side by side on your screen. One dark brown and scratched from decades of circulation. One red-brown with some shine left. And one blazing bright red, almost glowing under the light. That last one is what collectors chase. The 1963 D penny is made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams. When it leaves the mint, it has a bright red luster. Over time, that red color fades to brown. Coins that keep their full original red color are much harder to find. In circulated condition, a 1963 D penny is usually worth about 3 to 10 cents. Nothing crazy. But in uncirculated condition, especially graded at mint state 65 red, it can sell for around $20 to $50. Now here's the part that keeps collectors searching rolls of pennies, that if you find one graded mint state 67 red, the value jumps dramatically. High-end examples have sold for over $1,000 at auction. That's not common. It takes nearly perfect surfaces, sharp details, and strong eye appeal. But they do exist, and then we have errors. Back in the early 1960s, mint marks were still punched into the dies by hand. That means mistakes happened. Some 1963 D pennies show repunched mint marks. If you look closely at the D under magnification, you might see a slight doubling or shadow effect. It's subtle, but collectors love these varieties. There are also double die varieties to watch for. Check the date and the word Liberty carefully. If you see noticeable doubling in the letters or numbers, you could be holding something much more collectible than a regular penny. Imagine pulling a roll of old pennies from the bank, spreading them out on a table, and spotting that tiny double detail. That moment right there is why people fall in love with coin collecting, and here's something many people don't realize. Because over 1 billion were made, most people assume none are valuable. So high-grade examples were not carefully saved. That makes top-condition coins scarcer than you'd expect. So the big question is this: Do you have a 1963 D Lincoln penny sitting in a jar somewhere? Have you ever checked if it's full red? Have you looked at the mint mark under magnification? Let's quickly recap. The 1963 D 1-cent Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint. It features Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. It's made of mostly copper and weighs just over 3 grams. In everyday circulated shape, it's worth only a few cents. In nice uncirculated red condition, it can be worth several dozen dollars. And in top certified grades, auction prices have exceeded $1,000, all from a coin that most people overlook. That's what makes this hobby exciting. Treasure hides in plain sight. Top 4. Today we are looking at a penny that millions of people have touched, but almost nobody has really looked at. The 1964 D Lincoln penny might seem ordinary, yet in top condition it has sold for more than $1,000, hard to believe, right? A coin worth 1 cent turning into 4 figures. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what makes the 1964 D special, the rare details collectors hunt for, the errors that can multiply its value, and the real prices these coins have brought at auction. And near the end, I'll tell you what separates a common penny from a serious collector's piece. Let's take a close look. Zoom in on the front of the coin. You see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, introduced in 1909. On the left, the word Liberty. On the right, the date 1964. Just below the date is a small D mint mark. That tiny letter tells you this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the main branches of the United States Mint. Now flip it over. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design first introduced in 1959. If you move in really close with a macro lens, you can see the tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. Most people never notice that detail. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's where things get interesting. In 1964, the Denver Mint struck over 3 billion Lincoln pennies. That's an enormous number. So at first glance, this coin seems anything but rare, but numbers don't tell the whole story. Most of these coins were used heavily. They passed through vending machines, grocery stores, gas stations. They were handled during a major year in American history. Just months before, President John F. Kennedy had been assassinated. The country was still adjusting. And these pennies were part of daily life during that time, because they circulated so widely. Most 1964 D pennies today are worn and brown. They've lost the bright copper-red color they had when they left the mint. Now picture this for your video. Show 3 examples side by side under good lighting. One dark brown and scratched. One red-brown with some shine. And one bright, blazing red with strong luster. The difference is dramatic. And so is the price difference. The 1964 D penny is made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams. That high copper content gives it that rich color collectors love. Coins that still have full red color are called red by grading companies, and they bring the strongest prices. In circulated condition, a 1964 D penny is usually worth about 3 to 10 cents. That's basically copper value. In average uncirculated condition, maybe a few dollars, but when you get into higher grades, things change quickly. A 1964 D graded mint state 65 red can sell for around $20 to $40. Step up to mint state 66 red, and you may see prices between $50 and $100 depending on eye appeal. And in top-tier grades like mint state 67 red, auction records show sales reaching over $1,000. That's the power of condition. Now let's talk about something even more exciting. Errors. In the early 1960s, mint marks were still punched into coin dies by hand. That means small mistakes could happen. Some 1964 D pennies show repunched mint marks. If you look closely at the D with magnification, you might see a slight doubling or extra outline. It's subtle, but collectors pay attention to those details. There are also double die varieties to watch for. Check the date and the word Liberty carefully. If you notice strong doubling in the letters or numbers, that could mean you found a collectible variety worth far more than a standard coin. Imagine searching through a jar of old pennies and spotting that tiny doubling under a magnifying glass. That's the moment collectors live for, and here's something most people don't realize. Because so many were made, people didn't think to save them carefully. As a result, finding one in nearly perfect condition today is tougher than you'd expect. Let me ask you something. Have you ever actually checked your 1964 D pennies closely? Do you look at the color, the shine, the sharpness of the details? Or do you just see 1 cent and move on? That's the difference between spending money and collecting it. Let's recap. The 1964 D 1-cent Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint. It features Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Over 3 billion were produced, but only a small fraction survive in high-grade, full red condition. In everyday worn shape, it's worth only a few cents. In gem uncirculated red condition, it can be worth dozens or even hundreds of dollars. And in the very highest certified grades, auction prices have exceeded $1,000, all from a coin most people ignore. Top 5. Today we are looking at a penny that most people would toss into a jar without a second thought, but one version of this 1968 D Lincoln penny has sold for more than $1,000. That's right. 1 cent. Over $1,000. And almost nobody checks for it. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly what makes the 1968 D penny special, the small details that separate common coins from valuable ones, the errors collectors search for, and the real prices these coins have brought at auction. And near the end, I'll tell you what condition you need if you want this coin to be worth serious money. Let's take a close look. Zoom in on the front of the coin. You'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right. The word Liberty is on the left. The date 1968 is on the right. And just under the date, you'll notice a small D. That tiny letter tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Now flip it over slowly. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial. This design had been in use since 1959. If you bring the camera in tight, right inside the memorial, there's a tiny figure of Lincoln sitting in his chair. It's a small detail, but it shows the craftsmanship that went into even everyday coins. Here's where the story gets interesting. In 1968, the Denver Mint produced over 2 billion Lincoln pennies. So at first glance, this coin seems extremely common. And in circulated condition, it is. Most 1968 D pennies you find today are brown, worn, and worth just a few cents, but condition changes everything. The 1968 D penny is made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams. When it left the mint, it had a bright red shine. Over time, that red color fades to red-brown and eventually dark brown as the copper reacts with air and moisture. Now picture this on screen. Show 3 coins side by side. A dark brown circulated example. A red-brown coin with some original shine. And a bright red uncirculated coin glowing under the light. The difference is dramatic. Collectors pay a premium for coins that still have that full red color. In average circulated condition, a 1968 D penny is worth about 3 to 10 cents. In uncirculated condition with full red color, graded around mint state 65 red, it might sell for $15 to $30, but here's the part that surprises people. In very high grades, like mint state 67 red, auction records show examples selling for over $1,000. That's because finding one with nearly flawless surfaces, strong luster, and sharp details is much harder than most people think, and that's not the only thing to watch for. 1968 was actually an important year for mint marks. After a short break, mint marks returned to regular coinage in 1968, and they were placed on the front of the coin for the first time in modern Lincoln cents. That small d under the date is part of that history. There are also error coins to look for. Some 1968 D pennies show double die features. Check the date and the word Liberty carefully under magnification. If you see noticeable doubling in the letters or numbers, that can significantly increase the coin's value. You might also find coins with die cracks, off-center strikes, or other mint errors. These mistakes happen during the minting process and can turn an ordinary penny into something collectors compete for. Imagine searching through a roll of old pennies from the bank. You're scanning each one under a magnifying glass. Most look the same. Then suddenly, you spot something unusual in the lettering. That small detail could be the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of dollars. That's why collectors never stop checking. And here's something else. Because so many 1968 D pennies were made, people didn't think to save them carefully. As a result, truly high-grade examples are scarcer than the mintage number suggests. So let me ask you. Do you have a jar of old pennies at home? Have you ever checked for a bright red 1968 D with sharp details and minimal marks? Or are you about to start looking after this video? Let's quickly recap. The 1968 D 1-cent Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint. It features Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Billions were produced, but most were heavily circulated. In worn condition, it's worth only a few cents. In nice uncirculated red condition, it can be worth several dollars. And in top certified grades, auction prices have exceeded $1,000, all from a coin that many people ignore. If you enjoyed learning about the 1968 D Lincoln penny, hit the like button and subscribe for more hidden coin treasures. Drop a comment below and tell me if you own one of these, or which coin you'd love to add to your collection next. And keep watching, because the next valuable coin might already be hiding in your pocket.